It's going to be a long night for those in Milton's path. Here's the latest. Milton making landfall near Siesta Key on Florida's west coast with winds of more than 100 miles per hour. At last check, 1 million homes and businesses are without power. And even before Milton made landfall, tornadoes were breaking out across southern Florida.
And here's proof of the devastating impact those tornadoes are having. This is explosive video caught by Florida traffic cameras near Fort Pierce just after 5 o'clock today. I mean, look at that massive side of that funnel cloud and all of this debris now flying in front of the cameras.
Yeah, pretty crazy.
Florida will be waking up to scenes like this after Hurricane Milton hit the state as a Category 3 storm. This video comes from Palm Beach Gardens, about 80 miles north of Miami. The National Weather Service in Florida believes multiple tornadoes touched down in that area. Roofs are ripped off, cars are flipped over, trees are bent sideways from the strong winds.
So those winds knocked out power to millions of people. Right now, the U.S. power outage map shows more than 3 million customers are in the dark. That's an increase of 1 million people just in the past hour.
At least 19 tornadoes were reported before Milton made landfall. One area hit was St. Lucie near Fort Pierce on Florida's east coast. The county sheriff confirmed there are multiple fatalities at a senior community following a tornado outbreak. It's unclear how many people have died or how many others have been hurt. And again, authorities do say they are checking every house.
Our deputies are out here. The fire district is out here. We're going through the rubble. We're trying to provide recover anybody that we can.
Florida Governor Ron DeSantis says 9,000 National Guardsmen have been mobilized to respond to the storm, along with 1,400 search and rescue first responders. There are also 50,000 linemen on hand to help restore power.
Tampa, Rebecca, how's it going right now?
Steve, you put it best. We are in the thick of it right now since Milton has made landfall. I'm undercover, so I'm going to step out of the frame so our photographer can give you a better look at downtown Tampa. You can see the rain is coming down. We have really powerful winds. We've had some really strong gusts over the last hour. This is one of the areas that is under the mandatory evacuation, and fortunately, we have not seen any drivers on this road over the last few hours.
It's being called the storm of the century. Hurricane Milton slamming Florida's west coast with torrential rain and dangerous winds. Streets are beginning to flood, and hundreds of thousands of homes and businesses are without power. Making matters worse, tornadoes are spawning across the state.
Stay inside and stay off the roads. Floodwaters and rushing storm surge are very dangerous.
More than 8,000 federal personnel are on the ground in the southeast ready to assist with emergency response and recovery. 20 million meals and 40 million liters of water are also at the ready.
And the entire federal family will be there to provide those immediate life-saving activities and begin to stabilize the incident after the storm passes.
Despite mandatory evacuation orders in areas, some are choosing to stay behind.
Probably be a few days without power, and they'll turn it back on. I don't recommend this to anybody, not a soul, but we're going to be fine.
It was in the best interest for my wife and children to leave, and for me to remain to ensure the house is okay, ensure our business is okay, and protect our property.
But most people listen to the warnings.
We can stand the wind, we can stand hurricanes, but the flooding, no, we're not taking a chance on that.
So with all of this rain, we are under a flash flood warning in the Tampa Bay area for the next several hours. Hopefully this rain moves fast, because the longer it stays, the more dangerous these conditions become.
And the tornadoes that touched down in Florida caused some major damage. These pictures from the Lee County Sheriff's Office show the destruction of part of a mobile home community in Fort Myers. Gutters, trees, and bricks strewn everywhere. At a nearby strip mall, decks, fences, and light poles just ripped apart. Now let's get the latest on Milton's track from meteorologist Nick Gregory.
Yeah.
Nick, boy, here we go.
Yeah, I mean, you can see it clearly on the radar here where they've set our circulation. The eye, per se, has come on shore, again, near the Sarasota area. And you can see that Tampa has just been sort of in the worst of it now. And there's still that little band of the heaviest of rain sliding off to the east. Notice to the south of the hurricane, though, the air is quite dry. So the threat of that heavy rain has pretty much ended. And the tornado threat has now pretty much ended. Let's close in on the eye, though. And again, you can see that very heavy rain going right across the Tampa Bay area and extending onto the east. east now, destined for Orlando. And that's going to be the story for the inland areas. It's going to be the very heavy rain and the strong high wind conditions that will exist. And there's still a surge going on. Again, the worst of that surge right about here from, again, the Tampa Bay area on southward, where it continues to be a problem, and those where those storm surge warnings are still posted. And still, again, there'll be a surge, as we've been saying, for the east coast from about Daytona Beach going all the way up into southern Georgia. Hurricane warnings, of course, remain in effect for most of central Florida. Tropical storm warnings outside of that. And again, the tornado threat is over, but we've had a couple of storm reports here. In fact, you get down towards the Bradenton area. Here, you're talking about the potential for a storm surge that was reported, again, in that particular locale. And again, the reports of some flash flooding, some very heavy rain and high wind going on. You can see, again, for the most part, we still have a long night ahead for central Florida.
Very well. Thanks,
All right, Nick.
This is video taken earlier this evening in the Sarasota area, south of Tampa. It's where some of the strongest of Milton's winds have been battering the area a couple hours now. There's already some signs of wind damage, roofs being ripped off buildings and homes, power lines and traffic lines down.
So the storm has already produced a prolific tornado outbreak. The National Weather Service in Miami reported a record number of tornado warnings in a single day. The outbreak has now turned deadly.
On the eastern coast of Florida, in St. Lucie County, north of West Palm Beach, the sheriff's deputies says there are multiple fatalities. These are images of damage. The sheriff's office specifically, the storm damaged the parking structure, crushing several sheriff's department vehicles. The county says search and rescue operations are underway elsewhere in the county.
Hurricane Milton made landfall late Wednesday evening as a Category 3 storm near Sarasota, Florida. It already made its mark across the state. Milton's powerful outer bands spawned an extensive tornado outbreak. Video shows a large wedge touching down in central Florida. Images of tornado damage in deserted Fort Myers neighborhoods were already seen Wednesday evening.
I mean, just on the ground here, you have roofing. This probably coming from a business outside of the neighborhood, but most striking, you have this home right here. Part of the roof is missing.
Similar scenes in Lake Placid, 70 miles northeast of Fort Myers. Debris tangled in trees and homes destroyed. Milton bringing high winds and torrential rainfall. Dangerous flooding conditions continue along Florida's west coast.
But a glimmer of hope for the Tampa Bay area as the surge is certainly coming up south of here.
Tampa Bay dodging the worst of Milton's storm surge with its track headed just south. Reported in Bradenton, Florida, south of Tampa.
In all these pockets, they could see up to 10 to 15 feet of storm surge. And that is after Hurricane Helene ravaged this area 2 weeks ago, bringing in 5 feet of storm surge. There are debris piles all over because there wasn't time to pick it all up.
He's in the area where Milton made landfall just after 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time, capturing the damage caused by the storm.
Signs completely shredded, metal just completely thrown around. Debris now could potentially be lofted. Big concerns.
Sarasota police sent out a warning on social media similar to what law enforcement agencies have been warning for days. So starting from 6 p.m. this evening until the storm passes, they're not going to be able to go out and help people. So first responders also forced to wait out the hurricane and then begin the rescue and recovery process.
Let's look at some of the intense rain and wind on the east coast of Florida.
So this video was taken by a Fox Weather meteorologist while stationed in Cocoa Beach. That's outside Orlando this afternoon. Chief Meteorologist Dan Henry. Dan.
It was several hours prior to Milton making landfall that we saw intense thunderstorm bands move across the state of Florida and produce numerous tornado touchdowns. We showed you some of the video from that. There was a couple reports there around Fort Myers, also a small cluster around Placid Lakes that we mentioned in that story by Peyton. Also a couple around Lake Okeechobee, and a swarm of tornadoes also also on the East Coast, especially around the Fort Pierce area and just northwest of Melbourne as well. Now, the thunderstorms at this hour are not producing any tornado warnings, but they are certainly producing some very high winds as what's left of this eye wall now continues to trudge to the northeast through Tampa. There have been numerous reports of 100-mile-per-hour wind gusts on the coast. Sarasota, Venice had a 93-mile-per-hour wind gust reported at St. Pete as well within the last 10 to 15 minutes. These are all flood warnings in effect. We've seen upwards of a foot of rain that has fallen, but the official landfall was at 8:30 this evening at Siesta Key. It was a Cat 3 when it made landfall, and you can see the worst of the weather now is all around the Tampa Bay area up through Lakeland. So these are intense squalls here that are likely producing near 100-mile-per-hour wind gusts. And this storm is going to track to the east-northeast right across the entire Florida peninsula. You can see some of the wind gusts here. 90 there it was at St. Pete about half an hour or so ago. And the high wind warnings will continue here for the next several hours. So it's down to a Cat 2 now with 110-mile-an-hour winds. It'll still be a Cat 1 when it passes just to the south and southeast of Orlando, and then it emerges offshore tomorrow morning. And by the afternoon, it's a strong tropical storm pulling away from the Florida peninsula.